I'm honored to be here this morning in Pembroke Pines with Neil Jenkins, past president of FBA, FBA Hall of Fame member, executive director of FBA. I'm pleased to call him a friend, and together we're going to spend some time on camera exploring the career of Mr. Jenkins so that others might have a little bit better understanding of just who Neil Jenkins is. And we're going to begin with why did you decide to become a band director, and what were the circumstances that began your band journey?
Well, early in my life, we used to visit grandparents and relatives in Ellisburg, New York, which is a small community real close to Lake Ontario in the upper northwest cold region of New York, state of New York. I had an Aunt Louise that was an elementary music teacher, and she used to encourage me to get involved in music. And when I got to about 5th, 6th grade, she says, you know, you need to get involved in music and get in the band and play clarinet. So that's where it all started. I went to Robert E. Lee Junior High School in Orlando. My first band director in the 7th grade was Byron O. Baird. Probably a name a lot of people will not even recognize. In the 8th grade, I then had Warren Barrett as my junior high band director. And between Warren Barrett at Robert E. Lee and Del Kiefner, who was my high school band director at Edgewater High School, I had one goal in mind for my life, and that was to become like these two gentlemen. They were a tremendous influence. My dad was a radio, TV, Sylvania repair person, and that was not one route that I wanted to really go into. So music was pretty much the choice of my career aspirations, and again, Warren Barrett and Del Kiefner were great influences on that decision. Through great experiences with Warren and great experiences with Del at Edgewater High School, I went on to St. Pete Junior College. They were called junior colleges back in those days, because they had an outstanding music department, and spent 2 years at St. Pete JC, got my AA degree. I was a sort of a unknown, but sort of known around the county, Orange County, and certain parts of the state as a very good distance runner, which I delved into as a junior in high school. So I wound up at the University of South Florida with a choice of a music scholarship or an athletic scholarship. So I decided to take the athletic scholarship because I thought it might pay off in the future. So I went to University of South Florida in my senior year. Dr. Gail Sperry was the director of bands at that time. Also ran cross country and was normally listed like number 2 in the state in the cross country, and it was a very young cross country team, and Dr. Gil Hertz was our cross country coach back then. So that was pretty much how I got started in music.
You certainly had some strong characters to follow with Kiefner that I knew as well,
yeah.
And with Gail Sperry.
Yeah,
so.
and I'd like to add at this time it's really an honor to be interviewed by the Legacy Committee and following the interview that my high school band director is actually on the recordings.
That will be great to be there.
Yeah,
looking forward to it. So tell us where your teaching career began and kind of where you went from there.
Well, after I graduated from University of South Florida, I was able to secure a position at St. Cloud High School, which, if a lot of people saw the John DeYoung recording, that's where John DeYoung started, at St. Cloud High School. So I sort of followed in the footsteps of John DeYoung. There were several directors in between us, but I started off there. It was a small band when I took over, like 32 students. The band room was an old, dilapidated Army barrack, which was across the street from the old school because they had just moved into a new facility. And they had to bus the students over to me every day. So that was quite interesting. The acoustics in that room were something to behold. But started off at St. Cloud High School and eventually took over duties as St. Cloud High School and St. Cloud Middle School for about 5 or 6 years, I think it was. And then the guidance director who was doing chorus retired, and I took over the chorus at St. Cloud High School, so I was staying there full time. Then after St. Cloud High School, I had the opportunity to come to Broward County and secure the position at Miramar High School. And while at Miramar, it was a great joy to have my son as a part of the band. And you were his first middle school band director.
Yes, I was. And I have to say, you were my daughter's first high school band director.
That's right. We have some connection here. But that experience for him was tremendous at the middle school level. And then having him in the high school band was really an awesome experience. One that I'll never forget. And I'm sure he tries to forget it, but you know, no, he was great. You know,
he left his mark in Broward County.
Yes, he left his mark in Broward County, and so then after 8 years at Miramar, the opportunity arose to move up to the north end of the county. Taravella High School was opening up, and I had interviewed for that position once before, and then turned it down. Decided to stay at Miramar because I felt that maybe the job was unfinished at Miramar. And we had some great successes in those next few years following that. So I'm glad I stayed there. But had the opportunity to go up to Taravella and took it this time and spent 21 years at Taravella, which were probably the best 21 years of my musical career. So that was a great move.
But there were some dynamite bands that you had. I know we here in Broward County were blessed to be able to go and listen to you and watch what you did with those, the minions of kids that you had up there. It was truly a wonderful experience.
Right.
And so you retired from teaching from Taravella.
Right.
And then what did you do?
Well, one short year after retirement, I threw my hat in the ring for the interviewing for the executive director position because I knew that Dwayne Hendon was going to be retiring. And was fortunate enough to have a very good interview and awarded the position, which I'm really thrilled to be in. It's a lot of hard work, a lot more work than a lot of people would probably imagine, but I'm enjoying every minute of it.
Well, FBA, I believe, and this is personal, but I think most of us agree that we're stronger because of your involvement with FBA. And I thank you for that right now.
Well, thank you.
Before we go on any farther. So, during your years as a teacher, can you think of any particular challenges that you had to overcome? And this is for those young directors that are out there looking, you know, at their year and wondering how in the world they're going to get over this.
Right.
And if you had some challenges that you might share with them that would give them courage.
Well, there's been challenges pretty much at all three of those positions. When I started off at St. Cloud, I was a young, inexperienced band director, and I was kind of isolated because I was in Osceola County and there was only 2 high schools in the county. And we usually participated either with Polk County as our district or Brevard County as our district. And still, you know, the distance was pretty far. It's not like here in Broward County where you have several schools close to each other. So you really couldn't go visit anybody. So I was kind of a young, inexperienced band director, and I did my thing based on the experiences I had in high school, which Del Kiefner, bless him, gave all of us a great foundation. And the experiences we had at Edgewater were tremendous. And I always fell back on those during my marching band training and all the work that I did with concert bands. But one time I was kind of floored when Bill Miller and Tom Bishop came up to me after district and said, "We would like to come visit you sometime. We think you're doing a terrific job there at St. Cloud, and we'd like to come in and give you a hand." And I was kind of, whoa, thrown back and floored by that compliment. From that point, I really worked hard to try to gain as much knowledge as possible from everybody I could. And when I came to Miramar, I felt like I had a fairly good foundation to build on. Of course, we always are learning things, but I had a chance to network a little bit more at Miramar High School and learn from other people like yourself, who I had the opportunity to meet when I came here. And then going to Taravella, probably the biggest contribution to the success at Taravella was the feeder program. Ramblewood Middle School has always had a reputation of being a very sound, solid middle school band program. And every high school band director needs to work with their middle school band directors and get that rapport between those two programs so that the success can be fostered between both to help not only the high school program, but also that high school band director helping that middle school program. And I think that between the several directors that went through the middle school program up through John Nista, who was the last one there, that we worked pretty well together and shared some things that helped both programs.
It's certainly a profound observation. I know when I fed students into you when you were at Miramar, I was only about 10 to 12 of my kids a year would go to your school.
Right.
The rest of them would go to Cooper
And I was
City.
wishing more would come.
I've loved to have had it, but that relationship was so strong. When it is so strong, both programs prosper.
Right.
And that's, again, one of the keys. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned, when you had the visiting of the two directors, that was probably a pivotal moment in your career. Can you think of anything else that might have been a pivotal moment as you went along? Something that you overcame, or something that caused you to realize that good things, better things were in store?
Well, when I got to Taravella, I inherited a program there that was pretty much marching band oriented, competitive band program, and they had great success in marching. The concert program was really solid, and was at the point where it could even be better. Mm-hmm. And when I got there, I decided to try to make that a more balanced program between marching and concert. And we focused a lot on good repertoire, good choices that would play at district for MPA and even for concerts. And the band had great success, made it to state a couple times during my first years. And then after we got things pretty well established, we went, the band hasn't missed state music performance assessment since 1991, I think.
Wow.
But one of the biggest things I think that was pivotal is one year, and it was in the early 90s, the band captain then, Eddie Garver, who wound up being a music therapist and now lives in Los Angeles, I believe. He was the band captain, and he got all the band officers together and said, why don't we change what we're doing with marching band and try to accomplish what we accomplish in one rehearsal a week. And Mark Humphreys, who was my assistant at that time, we kind of went along with that and said, okay, let's give it a try, because we were rehearsing 2 days a week like most high school bands do. So we went to 2.5 hour to 3 hour rehearsal a week, and the success of the marching band didn't change a bit. It was still as successful as it always had been. And I think a lot of band directors were like jaw-dropping every time they saw us, how you do this with one rehearsal a week. Well, again, a lot of it comes from the fact that we had a great feeder system too, the middle school. But the focus on marching rehearsals was a lot more intense with one rehearsal, because they know they only had one rehearsal.
Good.
That also helped our concert program, because we were able to spend more time in the fall on concert music. And we started from day one, first day of school, working on concert music. And hardly ever touched marching music during class, except for maybe the second or third concert band. So that point in my career was probably a turning point in working toward a well-balanced program where we weren't focused so much on that marching aspect that can sometimes drive a band program down. And that's something that young band directors just really need to be cautious about, is not let that animal, that marching band, take over the program to the point where it ruins your musical teaching and the musical productivity that your band can actually really achieve.
I can see how that would have been pivotal, certainly. So let's get to the personal side here for just a moment. I'd like for you to think about your personal characteristics and traits and come up with something that might be a part of your personal character that might have been something that enabled you to achieve the level of musical success that you did.
It's a tough question because you're trying to look at yourself from the outside and not the inside. Well, my high school experience was one where band was a lot of fun, and it was very productive and successful. And anybody that knows anything about the history of Del Kiefner and Mark Casey at Boone High School and Jim Wilson at Jones High School, and that era in the 60s in the Orlando, Orange County area, will know that those bands were very, very successful in everything they accomplished. So my goal and my personal opinion about band has always been, band should be fun, and there should also always be time outside of band for students to do the things that they want to do besides band. In other words, there's life outside of band. And that was one of the reasons we went to the one marching rehearsal a week, because we knew we had a lot of students involved in other activities and they never had a chance to do those things, and even sports. And this is where the athletic part of it came into play. I had great rapport with coaches. So I could always go to them and say, hey, listen, Susan's got, we got an important rehearsal coming up for a very important event, and can she miss soccer practice, just this once, we'll make it up to you somehow in the future. And I had that rapport with them, and I was able to swing things like that because they understood where I came from too. So a lot of what I tried to do with my students was let them know that band is fun. I did expect them to work hard at what they were doing and try to accomplish what we were trying to accomplish. But there was also life outside of band. And I know that I hear from a lot of students, that had great experiences. And it's always trying to provide a great experience. We've taken the band to Europe and toured Europe, 6 different countries. We've gone to London New Year's Day parade. We've marched, we've performed in front of the Colosseum in Rome. We've marched the inauguration parade for Obama in his first term. We've done a lot of great experience type things where students can get out and see the world and just see what it's like outside of Coral Springs or outside of Broward County, outside of the state of Florida. So I was always trying to provide a great experience musically and life living skills that we provided for them.
And I know that your students, because I've talked with them, enjoyed the fact that you did allow them to have a life outside of band, and they still were just as dedicated to band as you would want them to be.
Right.
And
even though they lived in the band room all the time.
Exactly. But they did it because they wanted to.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And that is such an important point for young directors to be aware of and to study carefully when they're using so much of their students' time.
Right.
So thank you for bringing that up. Now I'd like to go conceptually here for a moment to something that you might think of that were concepts that you felt that each of your students need to have as a part of them, again, in order to help them achieve the musical levels that you achieve?
Well, such as?
Time management,
Okay.
dedication, reliance on others.
Right. One of the biggest things I could probably highlight here is during my 10 years as band director, saw a lot of changes as far as student attitude toward band. And probably one of the biggest influences on me was the opportunities that Mark Humphreys, who was my associate at the time, afforded me in 2 trips that we took to Japan. And seeing how the Japanese band programs operated, and actually sit in some rehearsals and see how those students actually operated and functioned during rehearsals and their training. And of course, a lot of people know in Japan, most of those bands are clubs, and they do this all outside of school. So they're pretty much dedicated to what they're doing. But in the 2 visits I've had to Japan with Mark, we've seen students take the leadership role, not the director. In fact, the director came to pick us up at the hotel while his band was at the band room warming up and tuning, and got back to see the students running the show, basically, doing the intonation training, doing the warm-ups. So there was a lot that we learned from watching and observing this. Even went to an elementary school where we were watching a 6th grader lead a clarinet sectional rehearsal.
Wow.
Imagine, just think of the things that could be accomplished if we could get our 7th or 8th graders in middle schools to do the same type of thing, take on those leadership responsibilities, instead of treating them like they're, too mature to do it.
Yes.
They're mature enough to do it. You just got to teach them how to do it. And that's what they've done over there. They've taught those kids how to pretty much lead and teach their own students and younger students how to play their instruments. So we brought that concept back to the Taravella band. And instead of treating the freshmen like they're the newcomer and the low man on the totem pole, we taught the seniors and juniors that they take those students underneath their wing and teach them about the band, teach them about their responsibilities to the band, teach them about the things that they need to learn to function within the band, which also teaches them the things they need to learn to function in life and how to function with each other and how to be cooperative and how to learn to cooperate with each other and how to be able to function together. So we took on that concept, and it worked to a pretty good extent. A lot of them took a lot of the freshmen under their wing, and some of them even took beginning freshmen that hadn't even played an instrument and taught them how to play their instruments.
Outrageous.
So that was probably one of the biggest pivotal things as far as during my tenure that we were able to accomplish, and that helped the Taravella program become what it became.
But a strong concept indeed. Very, very. Now let's talk a little bit about where you are now. Your involvement as FBA Executive Director takes up most of your life, I'm sure.
Right.
But you have to do something to get away from it all.
Right.
What might those things be?
Well, there's actually 3 things. Being retired now, my wife is also retired after 38 years as an elementary teacher. So occasionally we get to have lunch together, which is something that we never got to do before. And of course, the FBA position is like I said, a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. Had some great people before me, from Bob Lampy to Lewis Jones to Dwayne Hendon, and Dwayne and I had a great opportunity to work together very closely. When Dwayne came on as executive director in 2000, that was the year that I came on as president. So we had the opportunity to work very, very close together. And of course, prior to that, we were very good friends. So through working with Dwayne and over the years being a friend with Dwayne and working with him off and on various things, when I was conference facilitator for FBA, I learned a lot about the position and felt I had a really good handle on what needed to be done, and to carry on the tradition that those gentlemen had carried on. And of course, we're moving into new territory, MPA online. Back when Dwayne and when I was president, Dwayne was coming on executive director, was when we first introduced computers for district chairpersons.
Yes.
Which, hadn't been thought of. And I was moving into the computer era. So my goal pretty much is to try to keep streamlining this position and streamlining what band directors can do to get information. The MPA line, which has really evolved, over the years to what it is now, and there's things in the future that are going to make that even better, and adding more to it. This legacy committee, which was a brainstorm that came from a car ride of 4 people to go see Lewis Jones in Tallahassee one day, and putting Dwayne in charge of that. This is going to be great so that young band directors can go on and see what the retired band directors did to be successable.
I agree with that, and I don't want to cut you off, but that wasn't the question.
I know it.
The question was, what are you doing now,
But
other than
I
FBA?
wanted to get that in, though. Well, I do get a chance to play golf a couple days a week. Live on a golf course right out here, so that's fun. But I also, this is my 14th season in directing the Broward Symphonic Band, which is connected with Broward College. And it's a fairly large community band. It ranges anywhere from 85. I think last night we must have had 100 people in the band room. So we give 4 concerts a year, and it's great to still get a chance to conduct, and that keeps me in tune with what's going on, and keeps my musical
Juices.
juices going and still on edge, so I know what's going on.
That's good. Do you have grandchildren?
Yeah, 2 grandchildren. Both live in the Atlanta area in Alpharetta. We get a chance to go out and visit them quite often. Taylor's a junior in high school, and Parker's a 6th grader. And in fact, I'm going to be going up. I'm doing an honor band soon, going up to babysit them up there in that area and do an honor band in Fulton County. So we find ways to get up and see them once in a while.
Good. It's good to know that you do have a life outside of FBA
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, that's what we teach. There's life outside of music too.
Absolutely. That's the point I was getting back to.
Right.
Thank you very much. So, do you have any words of wisdom for young directors that you might like to pass along right now? You've already passed along many good words of wisdom. Mm-hmm. Can you think of anything else that you might like to add?
Well, just kind of reiterate things that have been said by quite a few other people, is always work for a well-balanced band program. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And we see a lot of young band directors coming out and focusing on marching band and trying to go to competitions and winning this and winning that. And sometimes it can get a little bit out of hand, and we've seen where bands have really shrunk in membership. Now, there's always going to be arguments about how beneficial it is and things like that, but I always, would go to maybe 2 competitions a year, and I always used it as a stepping stone to prepare the group for FBA. And always told the band as we went in, says, it doesn't matter what place you get, remember that you rehearse 1 day a week. We're going out there to get some feedback, to see what we can do to make it better, so that when we go to FBA, MPA, we'll be well prepared. And I think that if it's used in that manner, it's fine. Just don't go overboard with it. Work with your middle school band director. Get in touch with them. Del Kiefner and Warren Barrett, and this came after I graduated from high school, but they used to swap places. Del would go over to Robert E. Lee and teach a period of band, and Warren would come over to Edgewater and teach a period of band. It could be the second band or the first band. But work out things where you actually do some swapping or get over there. I always tried to go over and stand in that band room and conduct the middle school band. And
Yes, you did.
And John always had me come and conduct on concerts. So the kids always knew who I was.
Yes.
And that's important.
Yes.
And that helps foster a better band program, and it also helps that middle school program.
Okay, thank you. That's wonderful. Now, kind of in closing, I'd like to ask you to think over your career, number of years here, to perhaps select a short story that would demonstrate your satisfaction in having chosen the life as a band director. That's deep.
Yeah. Probably not a short story, but I think the thing that probably strikes me more than anything is the response that I get back from students that have graduated. And some of them were some really challenging students, but they come back and kind of apologize for that, and also say in the same breath what a great experience it was and how much they learned from that experience. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that any band director can take away from their job and what they do is the experience that they give those students and what they gain from that and how they can use that in their careers that they're in now, whether it's music, lawyer, or whatever. And I know that my son used to say all the time, they tried to get him to major in music, but he majored in communications. And he used his musical background a number of times in his work and what he did, and all the things that he learned from that and the experiences he gained from that. So, not a short story, but just an ongoing story, so to speak, of what I hear from students and how they appreciate what they got out of being involved in the band.
Well, it's clear from listening to you, and it's clear for those of us that have observed you, that you have had quite an impact on students, as well as quite an impact on the life of music here in Florida. And for that and those things, I thank you. And I want to just tell you how much I have enjoyed the interview, and certainly look forward to many people seeing this online and,
thank you.
and learning from it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.